Saira was a very young and charming girl. In the deep silence of the night, she quietly left her room. Walking slowly, she reached the edge of the deserted desert. It was nearly 1:30 at night. Around her there was complete stillness, as if the world was asleep. Placing her feet on the soft sand dunes, she slowly climbed upward. The cool breeze played with her open hair. After some time, Saira stopped at the top of the desert. In the distance, she saw a dilapidated wooden hut. She slowly moved toward the hut. At that moment, the surrounding darkness grew even deeper. Reaching the door, she stopped. The door was closed. With curiosity, she peered through a small hole. Then she took out a mirror from her purse and fixed her hair. She adjusted her clothes as if she was getting ready. Then, gathering courage, she slowly knocked firmly on the door. She kept looking at her reflection in the mirror. Suddenly, the door shook. Out came an almost 80-year-old frail man, Rafik. His eyes fixed on Saira as if he had suddenly seen someone from a dream. Saira, spreading a gentle smile, stepped forward and said, "Actually, I went out with friends, but they left me behind. Will you give me shelter tonight in your hut?" Rafik stood silently for a moment. Then slowly a mysterious smile appeared on his face. With a twinkle in his eyes, he looked around Saira from head to toe. Saira laughed and said, "Why are you staring so much?" Rafik stood behind her. Then Saira turned and asked, "So, what's your decision? Can I stay here tonight?" Hearing this, Rafik said in an excited voice, "Of course." "Come inside. Come in." Saira entered calmly. Rafik locked the door latch and said, "At night there is fear of thieves and robbers here." Saira paused for a moment, smiled, and said, "All right, I understand." Inside there were only 2 small rooms. Saira peeked into one room and then the other and asked, "Where will I sleep?" Rafik smiled softly and said, "Sleep wherever you like." Saira politely said, "Then you sleep in this room, and I will stay in the other." Rafik looked at her for a moment. Then he shook his head and said, "All right, as you like." Rafik lay down in his room, but his mind remained restless, thinking only of Saira. On the other hand, Saira also couldn't sleep lying down. Suddenly she heard a dog barking outside and got scared. She hurried into Rafik's room. In a trembling voice she said, "I am scared. I can't sleep alone." Rafik woke up and looked at her with astonished eyes. "What happened?" he asked. Saira, shivering, said, "I don't want to stay alone. I want to stay by your side." Joy lit up Rafik's face. He smiled softly and said, "But there is only one bed here." "Where will you sleep?" Saira didn't answer. Instead, she held his hand and said, "Let's go outside." "My chest feels heavy." Rafik immediately got up and said, "Come on, I'll take you outside." Together they stepped out of the hut. Around them the night was dark, and the cold wind whispered over the sand. In the stillness of the night, Saira and Rafik stood outside the hut. Darkness had fallen everywhere. Only the sound of the wind could be heard from somewhere in the distance. Slowly walking, they moved together toward the desert sands. After a while, Saira stopped, looked into Rafik's eyes, and with a soft smile said, "Look, tell me honestly, how do I look to you?" Rafik stayed silent for a moment, then took a deep breath and said softly, "You are very beautiful, like a light shining in the darkness of the night." Saira looked down shyly, then smiled again. A strange admiration appeared in Rafik's eyes. Suddenly, in excitement, he placed his hand on Saira's arm and said, "Let's go back inside. You are so beautiful, I can't take my eyes off you." Saira didn't say anything, just smiled softly. The 2 of them started returning to the hut. But suddenly Rafik stopped. Suspicion appeared in his eyes. In a serious voice he said, "Tell me, who are you really? How did you come to such a deserted place at this late hour?" Saira didn't flinch at all. In a gentle tone she replied, "I already told you. My companions left me behind. I was left alone. Why are you doubting like this? Rafik looked at her for a moment. Then his face softened. Nodding slowly, he said, "All right. If that's what you think, then let's go back inside." "It's already very late," Sarah laughed and said, "Why are you rushing so much?" "First, let's take a little walk in the desert." Rafik laughed this time and said, "Then let's go." "Whatever you want." Holding each other's hands, they started walking down the sandy slope. The last hours of the night had arrived. The darkness in the sky was getting even deeper. While walking, Rafik suddenly noticed a cave in the distance. That dark, hollow spot caught his attention. With excitement, he said, "Let's go inside that cave and take a look." Sarah became slightly scared and said, "No, it's very dark in there." "I am scared." Rafik smiled softly and replied, "Don't be scared. I am with you. Nothing will happen." Then slowly both of them entered the cave. Inside, a strange cold wind was blowing. The damp walls made it feel extremely wet inside. Sarah walked cautiously in front, and Rafik was right behind her. After going a little further, they stopped. A large rock was lying there. Rafik pointed with his hand and said, "You must be tired. Come, sit here and rest for a while." Sarah gave a slightly tired smile and said, "Yes, I truly feel very tired." She placed her hand on the big rock and slowly sat down. The cave was filled with eerie silence. Only the soft whisper of air could be heard. The darkness and the cold, damp atmosphere were making Sarah uncomfortable. Rafik was slowly moving toward Sarah. There was a strange glimmer in his eyes. Sarah sensed it and suddenly stood up. In a firm voice, she said, "Let's go back." "I don't like this place at all," Rafik answered with a small smile. "All right, if you don't want to, then let's go." The two of them slowly came out of the cave. Outside, the night had become even darker. The cold wind was blowing more fiercely. The silence of the desert was making the surroundings feel even heavier. Reaching the front of the hut, Sarah stopped and started dusting off her clothes. In an irritated voice, she said, "Ugh, I think some sand got stuck." Rafik came closer and asked with curiosity, "What happened?" "Let me see," Sarah smiled and replied, No, nothing. You stay right here. I'll go inside and fix it." She went inside and closed the door latch. She looked around inside the hut as if she was searching for something. After a while, she came out again with a wide grin on her face. Rafik was still standing near the door. He asked, "What happened? Why did you take so long?" Sarah giggled lightly and said, "Nothing. Actually, these clothes feel a bit tight for me. Do you have any old women's clothes?" Rafik looked shocked with wide eyes. "How would I have women's clothing here?" "Who are you, actually?" Sarah said in a soft voice. "Oh, I was just joking." "Maybe some old things are lying around." Rafik stood there, thinking for a moment. Then he slowly went inside and opened a closet. He took out an old red suit from there. Holding it in his hand, he said, "Here, this is very old. Maybe something someone left behind." Seeing the suit, Sarah's heartbeat raced for a moment, but she kept a calm smile on her face and said, "All right, I will go wear this and come." She went into another room. Rafik sat near the door and started mumbling to himself. This girl is truly unbelievably beautiful. Who knows where she came from? After a while, Sarah came out wearing the red dress. Moonlight was coming through the window and falling on her body. In that light, Sarah looked like some heavenly angel. Rafik stared, amazed, and said, "Incredible." "You are shining like the moon in this dress." Sarah smiled lightly and replied, "You look pretty good too." Rafik smiled happily and said, "Come on, let's go to sleep now." It's very late. Sayra slowly nodded. Then in a calm voice she said, "But I am very hungry. Can you give me something to eat?" Hearing Sayra's words, Rafiq's eyes sparkled. He hurried to a corner of the room, took an old container, and pulled out some dry bread. He brought it to Sayra's hand. Sayra giggled and started eating the bread. Rafiq kept staring at her without blinking. In the middle of eating, Sayra asked, "What happened? Why are you staring like that?" Rafiq said slowly in a low tone, "You look so beautiful right now that it feels impossible to look away. And I can't wait anymore." Sayra raised an eyebrow playfully and said, "Why? Haven't you seen any girl before?" Rafiq smiled slightly and replied, "Where would I see one? I've been living here alone for so many years." Sayra looked around. Suddenly her eyes noticed a pair of women's shoes in a corner. She walked over, picked up the shoes in her hand, and asked suspiciously, "What is this doing here? You said you live alone." Rafiq got a bit nervous. He quickly said, "I told you already, many people leave their old things." "Maybe this is one of them." Sayra smiled and said, "Okay, fine." She put the shoes back and walked toward another room. Rafiq quietly followed behind her. As soon as she entered the room, Sayra felt that Rafiq was standing very close. Rafiq said in a low tone, "Now we can't waste any more time." Night was almost coming to an end. Sayra looked at him and gave a soft smile. Then she slowly raised her hand and opened her palm. There was a small bottle in it. She said, "Okay, but first drink this. It will calm you down." Rafiq was overflowing with emotions at that moment. Without thinking for even a second, he drank the liquid from the bottle. Within moments, his breathing became heavy. His vision started to blur. In a trembling voice, he said, "You are truly amazing. I have never seen anyone like you." Sayra replied softly with a slight smile on her lips, "You are lying. Your experience is far greater than mine." With blurry eyes, Rafiq said, "No. Out of everyone I have seen, you are different. You are completely unique." Sayra stared deep into his eyes and whispered, "Still, I know you are lying." Rafiq's throat was trembling and his legs were getting weak. At that exact moment, Sayra slowly walked toward the wall. Gently, she stretched her hand and picked up the object she had taken out earlier from her side. It was a tiny hidden camera. The red light was flashing, showing everything had been recorded. Suddenly, Sayra turned around and slapped Rafiq hard on the face. In a firm voice, she said, "I am a police officer. There were many complaints about your crimes. You trap innocent girls and destroy their lives. So, I planned everything to make you confess your crimes yourself. Now, you have no chance to deny anything." Before she even finished speaking, a commando team burst through the door. In a moment, they pushed Rafiq to the ground. They tightly handcuffed him. He stared at Sayra with shock. He still couldn't understand how everything fell apart so quickly. Sayra said in a cold voice, "Your game is over. Your mask has now fallen in front of everyone." Within a few days, he was taken to court. The video and audio evidence were placed on the judge's table. Every moment proved his crimes. No excuse worked anymore. The judge announced the verdict in a serious voice. "You are guilty. You must face strict punishment." Rafiq stood silently with his head down. His eyes were filled with fear, shame, and regret. In this way, the monster hidden behind a mask was finally caught. And Sayra proved with her courage and intelligence that truth and justice are inevitable. No matter how big a mask the monster wears, one day it will be torn apart. In society's eyes, Rafiq remained nothing but a living corpse, alive yet without respect, without freedom, without power, forever locked in the chains of law and justice. So friends, this was today's video.